Mazda are replacing CX7 with CX8. For some obscure reason, Mazda have decided to replace their CX7 SUV with this CX8 SUV. Now what's the difference? This has a diesel engine. It's only got one transmission, but it comes in two trim levels. The Asaki, the top model, and the Sport. It's got the front end of a CX5. It's got the back end of a CX9. It's got the wheelbase of a CX9, and it's got the width of a CX5. Are you confused? I certainly am. It only comes in one engine, which is a diesel, and one transmission, which is automatic. This is the top model, the Asaki, and it's 62 grand-ish. The base model is 42 grand-ish. Top model comes in all-wheel drive only, and the base model comes in either a front-wheel drive or an all-wheel drive. Both models have 7 seats, and both models have the same interior as the Asaki, which gets leather. What do you get for your 20 grand? Well, you get nice leather upholstery and a few extra gizmos inside. But the base model still comes pretty well equipped. There's liquid steaming equipment. So inside CX8 is fairly spacious and roomy. Like I said, it's got the front of the CX5, the width of the CX5, the wheelbase of the CX9, and all bar this much of the length of the CX9, which means the cabin is quite roomy. With the seat in this position, there is plenty of space for my feet, and it's a fairly spacious cabin. You've got controls down here on your right hand, window controls right where your hand can easily fall to them, and the interior trim looks fairly good quality. The buttons on the steering wheel all fall easy to hand. The audio controls easily reachable with your thumbs, and phone answering with your left thumb. The stalks at the back, that's all typical Mazda fare. Now this top model, which as I said is called the Asaki, also has a few other bits and bobs. For example, the 360-degree view camera, which is absolutely spectacular. There's also a automatic tailgate, which you can operate with this button or from the back. So long as the key is in your pocket, you can do it from the outside. So in the back, as you can see, there's a good 6 inches of space with my knees. There's even air conditioning controls back here, and the back seat moves because this is how you get into the third row. And watch this. Confused? Me too. This has got the front of a CX5, the back of a CX9, the width of a CX5, the front of a CX5, and the wheelbase of a CX9. It's got 7 seats, the same as a CX9, but of course overall is smaller. I asked Mazda last night why they were dropping the CX7, and they said, well, because we're not calling this a CX7 because the car this is replacing was 5-seater. So it was all centered around the seats. Then of course there's the engine. There's only 2 trim levels, the base model and the Akira. And the difference between them is a bit of leather upholstery and a few little bits and bobs that are added on. And the other difference is the base model comes in either 2 or all-wheel drive. The top model, the Akira, this one, only comes in all-wheel drive. Then there's the way the CX8 handles. The suspension is unbelievably soft. There's an alarming amount of body roll in cornering. The Mazda last night said that they thought this had sporty handling characteristics. It doesn't. It absolutely doesn't. But it does feel very plush. The cabin is fairly quiet. The diesel engine is fairly quiet. This car only comes in a diesel. It's got 140 kilowatts. And it's a bit hefty too. Overtaking, you definitely have to plan what you're doing. The other thing that's really important for me is the infotainment system. Now the interior feels nice-ish. There's a bit of wood grain and some genuine fake artificial metal. But I'm just not entirely sure that the infotainment system input via the central dial between the front passenger seats is a great way to input. I prefer prefer just a touch screen, and although this is a high quality screen and you can actually hide some of the information that's on it to give you a little bit more real estate, it's not a very big screen. As you're probably aware, I'm an Apple Carplay freak. If a car doesn't have Apple Carplay, I mark it down immediately. Why? Because it is the best system that's available at the moment. And Android Auto, obviously, as well. Last night at the press conference, Mazda told us that they're going to have CarPlay available at the end of the year. Now, normally that means that people that buy cars between now and then, or who bought cars up to this point, will miss out. But not so with Mazda. Anyone that has this current system will be able to upgrade their system to one with Apple CarPlay and Android Auto at the end of the year. They haven't given us an idea of how much that's going to cost, but it'll be a dealer fitted thing, so you'll get it done with a service or whatever, $500 or $1,000 or whatever. And it consists of a piece of hardware that will plug in behind the head unit and some software programming. So Mazda said that they thought that the 7 seats were pretty good for adults for short to medium trips. And look, I tend to agree. That back seat I wouldn't want to have to get my way into, quite frankly. But given that it's only meant for short to medium trips, I think it would do the job. Now, the really important thing is that this is going to be a mum's taxi. That's what it was built for. It's built for people with big families or with medium families that are going to carry a few kids around on the weekend. If you don't want those back seats, you can lay them down and it gives you some extra luggage space. So you can take 5 people around with quite enough space for lots of bits and bobs and bags and what have you. I like the look and I like the comfort, especially this top model. The seats are extremely comfortable. And on a long trip, Mazda says you would get out refreshed. Now, I'm not sure I would get out refreshed, and certainly after 5 hours behind the wheel yesterday, in the base model, I did not get out refreshed. I was knackered. But it does what it says on the box. I'm going to give CX8 6.5 out of 10. It loses marks because the suspension is far too soft, and cornering even with a light load was a bit of a handful. I would imagine fully loaded it would be very much a handful. And there's no Apple CarPlay and Android Auto. Now that's coming along, as I said, at the end of the year. So then it would get a 7.5. So for now it's a 6.5. At the end of the year it will be 7.5. It's a tough market. As always, don't forget, press the little round symbol to subscribe. Bye.